So Rudy Giuliani is not the only whacked out lawyer representing Donald Trump in his futile attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election, which Joe Biden won. There's this other lawyer named Sidney Powell. Now, last week when I noted Sidney Powell seems absolutely out of her mind during that bizarre press conference at which Rudy Giuliani's face melted, some people wrote to me and said, David, it kind of sounds like you're making fun of Sidney Powell's accent. I guess she's Southern. That's not what it was. With any accent, the things Sidney Powell was saying make no sense. She suggested last week that there was a conspiracy to steal the election from Donald Trump by Joe Biden involving, this is not a joke, Venezuela and Cuba, the long-dead Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, George Soros, Antifa, some guy named Eric Coomer, and the Clinton Foundation. She seemed completely out of her mind. We now have more video evidence that she is indeed very sick. She was interviewed on Newsmax TV over the weekend. Newsmax is this even crazier alternative to Fox News that Donald Trump has been recommending along with OAN. And she claimed that they will be making a biblical filing about voter fraud against Donald Trump. She says the filings are coming and they will be biblical. What does that mean? I have no idea. See if you can figure it out.
I know you say you want to do your arguing in court. You are an attorney. You're not a press secretary, but you all did have a press conference last week. Jordan Sekelo said that there's going to be a filing soon in Georgia that would be explosive. Can you tell us anything? Can you make some news with us here tonight? Tell us anything new that you're going to present in that filing in Georgia.
Well, I can't say that yet, but hopefully this week we will get it ready to file.
Sidney,
it will be biblical.
Biblical.
Guys, we have to be allowed to call this what it is. These are delusions. This is mental illness. We can't say, well, because she's a Christian, this is not mental illness. A biblical filing about fraud in a court of law? Guys, please. This is where, if this were not Trump's lawyer and this were not a Christian, if they said something equivalent to this, you would be looking at a 72-hour psych hold for an individual like this. She also said that there are likely thousands of people involved in the conspiracy.
How big of a, if this happened, how big of a conspiracy, how many people would have had to have been in on something like this?
Oh, gosh, probably thousands, including the people running the machines at each of the polling centers. We know, for example, that one of the higher ups of Dominion went to Detroit the night of the election to handle things himself. And we also have evidence that there were any number of VPN lines open to the internet for foreign actors to be meddling in it.
Yeah, thousands of people in on it. One of the things we know from experience is that when there are more than a handful of people involved, you can't cover it up. And yet we had the Texas governor offering $1 million as a reward for proof of voter fraud. Nobody's been able to collect the $1 million. Their sworn affidavits keep getting dismissed in court. Courts keep finding there's no merit to any of these claims. If thousands of people are involved, there would be widespread, undeniable proof. You can't cover it up if thousands of people are involved. And then Sidney Powell goes back into the stuff about Venezuelan witnesses.
Has anybody given you an explanation that as to why they had to turn the machines off? You talk about how the machines got turned off,
yes,
and then there was a vote dump.
Our witness from Venezuela, who saw it all created and how it worked, said that he knew as soon as the machines were turned off in those key states, it was because we, the people, in voting for Trump in a landslide election, had essentially broken the algorithm that had been pre-programmed into the machine. So they had to stop counting in those states.
Did you hear that one? People voted for Trump so overwhelmingly that it broke the machine algorithms, whatever that means. She says Trump lost by 6 million, and she's saying Trump won by so much that it broke the machines. This is a very sick person, and sadly people fall for it. And it has even become too much for the Trump campaign. They put out a statement yesterday after this interview came out saying that Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own. She's not part of Donald Trump's legal team. She's not a Trump lawyer. She's essentially been fired because up until yesterday, she did appear to be all of those things. Donald Trump even previously tweeted about her that he has the best lawyers and representatives, including Sidney Powell, which we have up on the screen for you. It's just a hilarious comedy of errors. The Trump campaign now distancing from this lunatic woman as quickly as they can, but people fall for it. I got a very distressing email over the weekend from a viewer who said, David, my mom completely fell for that press conference. The press conference you and I likely watched, and we see Rudy Giuliani's hair dye melting and Sidney Powell blaming Antifa and George Soros and Venezuela for stealing the election. And we recognize these are ill people. This viewer's mom fell for it and thought that Sidney Powell is just a brilliant lawyer doing God's work. And this viewer spent hours convincing his mom that that's not the case. It's really scary stuff. And as with Trumpism in general, the really scary part is the number of people just falling for this nonsense, hook, line, and sinker. Biblical submissions proving voter fraud against Donald Trump. Sad and scary. We'll have more about this on our Instagram page. We are at David Pakman Show on Instagram. While you're there, you can follow me on Instagram as well at david.pakman. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.